Arizona carried out 41 executions. Robert Wayne Vickers, May 5, 1999, lethal injection. Vickers entered Arizona's prison system as a teenager in 1977 after committing 12 burglaries in just 13 days in Tempe, later confessing to 33 additional burglaries in California. His first known murder in prison was of fellow inmate Frank Ponciano. Vickers had deliberately chosen Ponciano as a cellmate because he owned a TV. When Ponciano failed to wake Vickers for lunch and drank his Kool-Aid, Vickers strangled him and repeatedly stabbed him with a sharpened toothbrush. He then carved the Japanese war cry bonsai misspelled into Ponciano's back, earning himself the nickname Bonsai Bob in prison. To prove to a guard that Ponciano was dead, Vickers burned a cigarette on his foot. By March 4, 1982, Vickers was on death row at the Arizona State Penitentiary in Florence for Ponciano's murder. Around 6:30 p.m. that day, while supposedly performing cleanup duties outside his cell, he targeted another death row inmate, Wilmar Buster Holsinger. Vickers harbored resentment over an earlier comment Holsinger had made about Vickers' niece. Vickers had constructed a firebomb using hair gel and ice cream carton, which he used to set Holsinger's cell ablaze. When a guard inquired whether Holsinger was dead, Vickers chillingly replied, "He should be, he's on fire." Holsinger died from burns caused by the flash fire, and several other inmates were nearly killed from smoke inhalation, forcing officials to evacuate death row. Vickers spent 17 years on death row before his execution. On the day of his execution, he lifted his head from the gurney, smiling and nodding at his relatives, including his aunt and cousin. He greeted them calmly, saying, "Hello everybody, see you later." Moments later, he mouthed to his family, "Time to go." At 3:03 p.m., the lethal chemicals began flowing into his veins, and he was pronounced dead just 2 minutes later. His last meal was green chili burros, burritos with barbecued steak, French fries and ketchup, vanilla ice cream, cream soda, and a cigarette. Michael Kent Polland, June 16, 1999, lethal injection. On May 24, 1977, Purolator guards Russell Dempsey and Cecil Newkirk left Phoenix in an armored van to make their bank deliveries in Prescott, Sedona, and Flagstaff. At the Bumblebee Road exit on Interstate 17, they were stopped by Michael and Patrick Polland, who were disguised as highway patrol officers and driving a car equipped with emergency lights. The brothers took the guards captive and stole nearly $300,000 in cash. The next day, authorities discovered the abandoned armored van. That morning, Michael rented a boat at the Lake Mead Marina and met his brother at a remote landing. They placed the guards into canvas bags, transported them across the lake, and dumped them into the water. The bodies resurfaced 3 weeks later in a cove on the Nevada side of the lake. The Pollands were later convicted in federal court for robbery and kidnapping, and in state court for murder. Michael Polland was executed by lethal injection more than 20 years after the crime. When asked if he had any final words, he remarked that he was hungry, joking, "I'd like to know if you're going to bring me lunch afterward. I'm really hungry. I can't think of anything else." During the reading of his death warrant, he lifted his head several times to glance towards the witness chamber and mouthed, "I love you," to two of his sons and a daughter-in-law who were present. His last meal was 3 fried eggs, sunny side up, 4 slices of bacon, order of hash browns, 2 slices of whole wheat toast with 2 pats of real butter, 2 individual serving size boxes of Raisin Bran cereal, 2 cartons of milk, 2 cups of Taster's Choice coffee. Patrick Gene Polland, March 15, 2000, lethal injection. Just like his brother, Patrick was also sentenced to death. Strapped to the gurney, Polland looked out at the witnesses and offered apologies for the victim's family, Cecil Newkirk and Russell Dempsey. "I'm sincere. I'm sorry for the pain and suffering I have caused. I do thank you for your forgiveness." He also sought forgiveness from his family and friends, adding, "And I ask the woman I love to remember I will always love her," referring to his girlfriend, Sherry Jo Christensen, who was present. Earlier, he had mouthed "I love you" to Christensen and blown her a kiss. At 3:03 p.m., the lethal chemicals began flowing into his veins. Poland's head jerked 4 times, his body shook slightly, and his head rolled to the side as his eyes closed. He was pronounced dead at 3:07 p.m. He did not want a final special meal. Ignacio Alberto Ortiz, October 27, 1999, lethal injection. Ortiz had been involved in an affair with Manuelita McCormack, the mother of his 3-year-old godson. When Mrs. Cormack reconciled with her husband, Ortiz attempted to resume the relationship. On the evening of December 21, 1978, Ortiz went to the McCormack home while Mr. McCormack was away. There, he strangled and stabbed Mrs. McCormack and also stabbed her 9-year-old and 8-year-old daughters. He then poured gasoline throughout the house and over Mrs. McCormack's body, placing a delayed ignition device at the foot of the 3-year-old's bed. Before igniting the blaze, Ortiz instructed the children to remain in the house until the fire department arrived. The children survived, but Mrs. McCormack did not. While awaiting trial in the state prison system, Ortiz was also convicted of attempted first-degree murder and conspiracy for plotting to kill other members of the McCormack family. He had solicited a fellow inmate to carry out the plan, though no action was taken. Ortiz claimed he had been home sleeping at the time of the murders. However, he was found in possession of the hunting knife and gas can used in the attack, and his fingerprints were on a matchbook used to start the fire. A neighbor testified that Ortiz's truck had been parked behind the McCormack home the night of the slaying. When asked if he had any final words, Ortiz said, "Jesus Christ is the Lord. Heavenly Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." Ortiz did not address the McCormack family members present in the witness room or offer them an apology. Only one of the daughters attended the execution. Ortiz, a Catholic, repeated his prayer in Spanish with his eyes closed. As the lethal injection began at 3:04 p.m., his chest heaved twice and his head tilted slightly towards the witness room. He was pronounced dead at 3:05 p.m. Among the 29 witnesses were Ortiz's elderly mother, Isabel Rodriguez, his lead attorney, Sean Bruner, and members of the McCormack family, including Charles McCormack Jr. and 2 of his children, Patricia McCormack Ramirez and Charles McCormack III. His last meal was 2 fried eggs, hot sauce, bacon, sirloin steak, French fries, ketchup, 1 pint of vanilla ice cream, 1 pint of milk, and 1 cup of hot coffee. Anthony Lee Cheney, February 16, 2000, lethal injection. Cheney and his wife Deanna, though he was legally married to another woman, began their crime spree outside of Arizona, burglarizing several homes in other states before crossing into Arizona. At one house, they found multiple firearms, which Cheney, described as a gun nut with extensive knowledge of weapons, decided to re-burgle later to ensure he didn't miss anything. While in New Mexico, the pair came across a late-model black Ford pickup with license plates reading WMD. They transferred their stolen goods into the truck and abandoned their own vehicle somewhere in the state. As the 1982 Labor Day holiday began, they entered Arizona and, wary of roadblocks set up by the Department of Public Safety to catch drunk drivers, decided to camp in a remote area until the holiday ended. Their presence drew the attention of a Coconino County Sheriff's deputy, who found it unusual for anyone to be camping there and moved to investigate. When the deputy approached the campsite, he called in the truck's description. Cheney exited the vehicle and, when asked for identification, claimed it was in his truck and that he would retrieve it. While the deputy spoke with Deanna, Cheney returned with a gun pointed at the deputy's head. Deanna handed over the deputy's sidearm and Cheney demanded her AR-15 rifle. He then ordered the deputy to kneel. Fearing for his life, the deputy attempted to reason with Cheney, mentioning his family and suggesting he could handcuff him to a tree to facilitate an escape. Meanwhile, the dispatcher determined the pickup was stolen and tried to inform the deputy, ultimately calling a second officer, who would become the victim, to investigate. Cheney, seeking more control of the situation, handcuffed the first deputy to a tree, instructed Deanna to disable the two-way radio in his vehicle, and took its keys. After they drove off, the handcuffed deputy eventually freed himself with a spare key and ran to the radio. Soon after, the second officer encountered Cheney's vehicle. Cheney jumped out, firing his AR-15 at the deputy as he attempted to avoid the bullets, which shattered glass and sent debris flying. Over 30 rounds were fired, with one bullet nearly severing the deputy's left arm. Cheney approached the officer from behind and fired again, leaving powder burns on his body. Returning to the truck, Cheney told Deanna, "Murder one," and instructed her to reload. The victim, a doctor and party-time deputy, remained conscious for about 30 minutes, repeatedly telling medics, I'm dying, I can't breathe." Later, Cheney and Deanna encountered 2 boys in another pickup. Cheney threatened the driver with his gun, forced the boys to kneel, and transferred stolen goods into the vehicle. Before letting them go, he warned the boys that he had handcuffed one deputy and shot another. The pair then drove to Flagstaff to refuel the stolen truck. Police quickly identified the vehicle and moved in, though Cheney remarked that he was surrounded by officers who had yet to realize his presence. When authorities realized the element of surprise was gone, they prepared to intervene. His last meal was 2 eggs over easy, 4 slices of bacon, 1 pint of vanilla ice cream, 1 can of peaches, and strawberry jam. He didn't have any last words. Donald J. Miller, November 8, 2000, lethal injection. Jennifer Guder went to a drive-in with her boyfriend Jose Luna and an acquaintance, Miller. Unbeknownst to her, Luna had enlisted Miller's help in killing Jennifer over a dispute regarding $50 in child support payments. Luna and Miller drove Jennifer to Mount Lemmon, where Luna shot her once in the head. Jennifer struggled to survive and attempted to hide under her car. They later transported her to a remote desert area, where Miller shot her 5 more times in the head. Luna pled guilty to first-degree murder and received a life sentence, while Miller waived federal appeals and received the death penalty. Before his execution, Miller addressed his final words to his mother, a friend, and a relative of his victim. He began by saying to his mother, "First of all, Mom, I love you. Sorry to put you through all of this. I'm sorry, but I needed to." He then spoke to a friend, "Richard, it was good to know you. Take care of my mom." Miller also spoke to the younger brother of Jennifer, who was present in the witness room. "Matthew, I think that's you. I apologize because I didn't take the bullet for your sister, because I understand that you missed the Little League Championship game. You can't go back to play the game your team won." He concluded with a prayer. "Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus Christ, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Although I walk through the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. Mom, I love you." That's it. His last meal was 2 guacamole tostadas, 2 tacos, 1 strawberry malt, 1 Dr. Pepper, 1 lemon meringue pie, 5 whole jalapenos, 1 lemon, 1 lime, 1 quart of strawberry ice cream. Robert Charles Comer, May 22, 2007, lethal injection. Comer and his girlfriend, Huneva Willis, were staying at a campground near Apache Lake when they invited Larry Pritchard, who was at a neighboring campsite, to join them for dinner and drinks. Around 9 p.m., Comer shot Pritchard in the head and later stabbed him in the neck. He took Pritchard's emergency medical technician badge from his pocket, while Willis concealed Pritchard's body by covering it with wood. After the murder, Comer and Willis returned to Pritchard's campsite and stole several of his possessions, including his dog. They then approached the campsite of Jane Jones and Richard Smith, posing as Arizona Drug Enforcement officers. At gunpoint, they forced Jones and Smith out of their tent. Comer displayed the EMT badge, tied the couple up with wire and duct tape, placed them in their truck, and took items from their tent. While driving the truck, Jones asked to relieve herself. Comer allowed her but accompanied her into the woods and essayed her. When the truck ran out of gas, Comer, Willis, and Jones, along with Willis's 2 children, continued on together. During this time, Comer shot Pritchard's dog and essayed Jones twice more. Jones ultimately managed to escape while Comer was repairing the truck and was later rescued by a passing motorist. His final statement was, "Go Raiders." His final meal was fried okra, 4 buns with butter, salt, banana bread. Jeffrey Timothy Landrigan, October 26, 2010, lethal injection. Chester Dean Dyer was a 42-year-old man who worked at a health club and was known for bringing men back to his apartment. On the night of his death, Dyer called friends to say he was with a man named Jeff. Not long after, he was found strangled with an electrical cord and stabbed repeatedly inside his home. A deck of pornographic playing cards was scattered across his bed, and investigators discovered a shoe print and spilled sugar on the kitchen floor that matched Landrigan's shoes. When questioned, Landrigan admitted to beating Dyer after he claimed Dyer made unwanted sexual advances. However, he insisted another man had carried out the actual killing. Throughout his trial, Landrigan was combative and uncooperative, frequently disrupting proceedings. At sentencing, he made his defiance clear, telling the judge, "If you want to give me the death penalty, bring it on, I'm ready." Landrigan's early life had been marked by turmoil and violence. Abandoned as an infant, he never met his biological father, who himself died on death row in Arkansas. His grandfather was fatally shot by police while robbing a drugstore. By 1982, at just 20 years old, Landrigan was living in Oklahoma when he stabbed to death a childhood friend. He was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death, but the conviction was later overturned. He agreed to a plea deal for second-degree murder and received a 20-year sentence instead. In 1989, while serving that sentence, Landrigan escaped from a minimum security prison work crew and fled to Arizona, where he would commit his second murder. His final words were, "Well, I'd like to say thank you to my family for being here and all my friends and Boomer Sooner." Sooners is the team nickname at the University of Oklahoma. His last meal was steak, fried okra, French fries, strawberry ice cream, and a Dr. Pepper. Eric John King, March 29, 2011, lethal injection. Just after midnight, a Phoenix convenience store became the scene of a deadly robbery. A black male armed with a pistol entered the market and during the course of the crime shot and killed both the store clerk, 46-year-old Ron Barman, and the security guard, 61-year-old Richard Butts. The entire incident was captured on two surveillance cameras. The footage clearly showed the gunman, dressed in a distinctive sweater, shooting the clerk. No customers were inside at the time. The security guard was later discovered outside by a passing motorist, lying on the ground with his holster empty. While calling 911, the witness saw a man in the same sweater approach the fallen guard and wipe down the holster and belt with a cloth. Nikita Renee Hill, who lives nearby, testified that she saw King, whom she knew personally, walking toward the dumpster shortly after the crime. She watched him toss a thin plastic bag inside. Police recovered the bag and found the gun along with a dark sweater patterned with white diamonds, the same sweater Hill had seen King wearing earlier that night. Michael Jones, Hill's boyfriend, also took the stand. He said that he had gone to the short stop with King to buy wine, but stayed outside while King went inside. Moments later, he heard gunshots. Looking toward the store, he saw King emerging with a gun in hand, while the security guard lay motionless on the ground near the entrance. Jones was eventually released and never charged in connection with the murders. At the time of the killings, King had only recently regained his freedom after serving 7 years in prison for essay and kidnapping. He did not have any final words. His last meal was fried catfish, collard greens, candied yams, cornbread, chocolate cake with ice cream, and cream soda. Donald Edward Beaty, May 25, 2011, lethal injection. Christy Ann Fornoff was only 13 years old when she vanished while out collecting payments on her newspaper route at an apartment complex in Tempe. Her sudden disappearance triggered an immediate response. Police scoured the property with dogs while her parents and neighbors went door to door searching for any trace of her. 2 days later, the complex's maintenance worker, Richard Beaty, was spotted standing beside her body, which had been wrapped in a sheet and placed next to a trash bin. When another man came upon the scene, Beaty claimed he had just discovered the body himself and had already called police, though in reality he had made no such call. Investigators quickly tied Beaty to the crime. Inside his apartment closet, police discovered vomit that matched the victim's, as well as hairs consistent with those found on her body. At his first trial, the jury failed to reach a unanimous verdict, resulting in a mistrial. But prosecutors soon learned that while in custody, Beaty had confessed to a jail psychiatrist. A court order compelled the doctor to testify, and on the witness stand he revealed that Beaty admitted he had not meant to kill Christy. Instead, he said he put his hand over her mouth to stifle her screams, causing her to choke and suffocate on her own vomit. With this confession, along with the physical evidence, the jury found Beaty guilty of the girls' murder, and he was sentenced to death. His final words were, "I just want to say to the Fornoff family, I'm sorry. God will let you see her again. Freddie, I love you. I kept my promise. Thank you for being here for me." His last meal was a beef chimichanga with salsa and guacamole, a double cheeseburger with all the fixings, fries, Rocky Road ice cream, and a Diet Pepsi. Richard Lynn Bible, June 30, 2011, lethal injection. In May 1987, Bible was released from prison after serving a sentence for kidnapping and essay that had been imposed in 1981. Just over a year later, tragedy struck again. 9-year-old Jennifer Wilson set out on her bicycle to ride the short distance to her family's ranch near Flagstaff. She never made it home. For 3 agonizing weeks, her family and authorities searched. Then her naked body was discovered beneath a tree, concealed under branches. Her hands had been bound tightly behind her back. On the very day Jennifer's body was found, Bible visited his brother, driving a Blazer-style vehicle. He claimed it belonged to a friend, but in reality, it had been stolen. Not long afterwards, police attempted to stop him. Bible fled in a high-speed chase, but was caught behind the wheel of the same stolen vehicle, now hastily repainted a different color. Within hours of his arrest, Bible admitted to stealing the GMC and even confessed to repainting it just 2 hours before being captured. Investigators searching the vehicle uncovered dozens of rubber bands scattered inside, but none of the bags they would have come from. The steering column had been crudely cut open, with a piece of metal from the job lying on the floorboard. They also discovered a case of 20 miniature bottles of Suntory vodka, with 2 missing. At the site where Jennifer's body was hidden, the detectives found 2 identical bottles. Rubber bands matching those in Bible's possessions were strewn across the area as well. But the most damning evidence came from what was, at the time, one of Arizona's earliest DNA cases. A bloodstain on the shirt Bible was wearing at his arrest was tested and determined to be Jennifer Wilson's blood. With the physical evidence, his prior criminal record, and the DNA linking him directly to the child's murder, Bible was convicted and sentenced to death. His final words were, "I want to thank my family and my lawyers. I love them all and everything's okay. That's it." His last meal was 4 eggs with cheese, hash browns, biscuits and gravy, peanut butter and jelly, and chocolate milk. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.